You are listening to a free version of the Majority Report with Sam Seder. To support this show and get another 15 minutes of daily program, go to majority.fm, please.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Monday, May 24th, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, senior fellow at Demos, the chair of the board at Color of Change, the author of The Sum of Us, What Racism Costs Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together. Heather McGee will be here with us. Also on the program today, world leaders express outrage over Belarusian opposition figure seized as the Russian-backed Lushenko stages a fake bomb scare. UN aid now allowed in Gaza by Israel amidst COVID fears. Gaza, they have completely limited testing and only 2% vaccination rate. Meanwhile, in this country, COVID at its lowest level since last June, and nearly 50% of our population has at least one shot. Biden administration extends temporary protection status for over 150,000 Haitians by 18 months. Democrats seem to be prepping reconciliation for the infrastructure bill. Joe Biden's budget, however, drops any mention of public option or those cuts to prescription drug prices. Wall Street Journal report that the U.S. intelligence has intelligence on ill researchers in Wuhan, adding to calls for a probe on COVID's origins. Tomorrow, Joe Biden will host the Floyd family on the one-year anniversary of the killing of George Floyd. But he'll have no police reform legislation to sign. Matt Gaetz' ex-girlfriend is cooperating with the feds. That's going to be a drag for him. And in the wake of revelations of an unauthorized intelligence unit in the Postal Service, the Washington Post reports on another one in the Commerce Department. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. The beginning of the week. Let me just start off by saying my voice is gone for some reason. I'm pretty sure it's allergies. It's there's so much pollen in the air that I'm literally, I think, like chewing on it.
Yeah,
it's not even an allergic reaction, right? It's like literally, you're breathing it in.
It's particularly rough. I mean, I've been waking up in the middle of the night coughing, which I just like, I don't even smoke or anything like that. And it's the pollen.
It's the pollen. And now, of course, I wanted to continue to wear my mask outside, but I was afraid of getting beat up by Tucker Carlson fans. So,
yeah.
So now I'm just chewing on the pollen. Joining me, as always, Emma Vigeland, who has apparently the same issues with pollen that I do, but just not as extensive.
Yeah, I mean, it was a twin waking up of coughing and then just screaming at the top of my lungs. Trae Young flopped. Trae Young flopped.
That's a sporting game.
The Knicks lost their first playoff game in 8 seasons by 2 points last night. Yes.
Well, sorry to hear that.
Yep.
Sorry to hear that. Wasn't quite sure where you were going with that, to be honest.
I mean, I told you before the show, but.
Yeah, I don't think I understood it then either.
You lost 2 baseball games this weekend. So.
That is true.
Personally.
Well, I mean, I was assistant coach. My son, it was tough. It was a tough weekend. With that said, this is, I don't know, is this a cautionary tale for folks who were pedestaling Liz Cheney, this champion of democracy? She was so concerned about democracy because of the big lie. Understand, I mean, this is generally true for politicians, but for someone like Liz Cheney, it really should go without saying, which is Liz Cheney is doing what Liz Cheney thinks is best for Liz Cheney. And Liz Cheney's agenda is not one that you could possibly share unless you are a deeply, deeply conservative and, I think, in some instances, completely unconcerned with the idea of forever wars and denying essentially as many people as possible the benefits of society. I really don't know how else to articulate that in a polite manner. Here's Liz Cheney on with Jonathan Swan on Axios' HBO. It is impossible to say what she's saying and genuinely believe it.
You don't see any linkage between Donald Trump saying the election's stolen and then Republicans in all of these state legislatures rushing to put in place these restrictive voter laws?
Well, I think you have to look at the specifics of each one of those efforts. I think if you look at the Georgia laws, for example, there's been a lot that's been said nationally about the Georgia voter laws that turns out not to be true.
But even the Republican Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan, said that there was when this bill started to pick up momentum was when Rudy Giuliani was testifying that the Georgia election was a sham. I don't think anyone doubts that the reason 400-some voting bills have been introduced, 90% by Republicans, supported by the Republican National Committee. I don't think it's a coincidence after the election that this has happened.
Look, I think everybody should want a situation and a system where people who ought to be able to vote and have the right to vote can vote, and people who, don't, shouldn't. And again, I come back to things like
But what problem
voter
are
ID.
they solving for? What are all these states doing?
No, I think, each state is different.
What was the big problem in Georgia that needed to be solved by a new law? What was the big problem in Texas? What was the big problem in Florida? These laws are coming all around the states, and what are they solving for?
I think you've got to look at each individual state law. But I think what we can all agree on...
You can't divorce them from the context.
Well, yeah, but I think what we can agree on is that what is happening right now is really dangerous. And
I can agree with that.
When I think about 2000, think about sitting on the inaugural platform in January of 2001.
Pivot.
Watching Al Gore. Of course, we had won. I'm sure he didn't think he had lost. Mm-hmm. We had fought this politically very, very intense battle, and he conceded. He did the right thing for this nation. And that is one of the big differences between that and what we're dealing with now and the danger of Donald Trump today.
False equivalence. Go, Sam.
If it wasn't for how much the pollen has taken out of me, I can't even tell you how outrageous what she has just said. I mean, we can work backwards. First off, she probably just coincidentally reminded everybody that when you want to look to the closest analog in recent history as to what happened on January 6th, right, which is where she is in a rehabilitation project, you need only look to West Palm Beach, Florida, 20 years prior, when the operatives that the Bush-Cheney team sent to Florida to stage a mini riot to prevent the people who are counting the ballots in West Palm Beach to go forward. If you want to look for the model for what we saw on January 6th at the Capitol in 2021, all you need to do is go down to 2000 in Florida in November.
They were screaming, "Stop the steal." It was the same people. It was Roger Stone behind that same propaganda project, just like he was in 2020.
Exactly. And then on top of this, how absolutely embarrassed do you need to be when Jonathan Swan, who really needs the access to these type of people, right? I mean, to do his job, is laughing in your face repeatedly at your complete refusal to acknowledge that the Republicans are basically engaged in a huge voter disenfranchisement project that is solely and totally inspired by Donald Trump pretending that the election was stolen. I mean, he gives her 3 states, and she said, well, you got to look at each state in context. All right, so what about Georgia? Well, I mean, look, Liz Cheney, as wretched as you may think that everyone supporting Donald Trump is, Liz Cheney is the same, except for that one issue, which is solely a function of her trying to brand herself as the Pepsi to Donald Trump's Coke. They're both colas, folks. It's just that they're just trying to wrap themselves in a slightly different veneer. And so, people need to really be careful when they lift up voices like Liz Cheney's, because now what's going to happen is when folks complain about those election laws, other folks are going to cite Liz Cheney, who's no fan of Donald Trump's. They're going to say she doesn't see that there's a problem with these laws either. I mean, that's the way it works.
Yeah. I mean, as Swan was laughing about, there is a complete schism in her logic. That you can't say that Donald Trump was lying about the election being stolen and support all the laws that are meant to prevent what Donald Trump claimed were the factors that led to the election being stolen, because it's just such shaky logic. So that's why Swan's laughing there. And she did say something like, people who should vote should, and people who shouldn't be able to vote shouldn't. That's what they're trying to prevent. What does that mean necessarily? He should have pressed her on it. What does that necessarily mean? The reality is they're trying to make it so that people who have the ability to take off work, people who are wealthy, people who are white, those are the shoulds. And the shouldn'ts, well, say you work 3 minimum wage jobs, you can't take the time to stand in a 5-hour line in Atlanta. Sorry, no votes for you.
I mean, that would have been the question for him to ask, because what is her answer? Well, she's got to say, well, people who aren't legal to vote. Well, what proof do you have that there are people who are not legal to vote voted?
Then you're just backing Trump's premise. And then there's no difference at all, except for exactly as you say, the cola branding.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. That was not to denigrate colas, I should say.
I will denigrate colas.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Heather McGhee after this. Folks, choosing the right charity can mean the difference between saving a life or not. It can also mean about just making sure that your efforts are being optimized, essentially. For me, the way that I have been finding my charities, I actually, to be honest with you, there's really 2 different ways I find my charities. One is someone I trust, who's been working with a specific charity. And then the other way is some entity I trust who has been doing massive research on these charities, and that is GiveWell. GiveWell recommends charities that have rigorous academic independent studies of the effectiveness of their program. Since 2010, GiveWell.org has helped over 50,000 donors find the places where their donations can save or improve lives the most. Here's how they do it. GiveWell dedicates over 20,000 hours a year to research in charitable organizations. They handpick a few of the highest impact, evidence-backed charities. Donors have used GiveWell to donate more than $75 million over that time. These donations are going to save over 75,000 lives and improve the lives of millions more. And here's the best part. GiveWell is totally free. GiveWell doesn't even take a cut of your donation. They allocate your tax-deductible donation to the charities you choose.